Alright, roster controversies aside, the first day of the Blastfall Files have come and went. We had our 4 opening round matchups take place today. We had NAVI taking on the Falcons, G2 taking on Faze Clan, Vitality taking on Astralis, and then we ended the day with Team Spirit taking on Team Liquid. If you're looking for your quick TLDR, NAVI took care of the Falcons with little effort. G2 and Faze played a 3-game set where they were throwing haymakers at each other, trading big wins back and forth, with G2 pulling ahead and taking the series in the 3rd map to close it out. To the shock of absolutely nobody, the mighty Cadian was not the difference maker Astralis hoped it would be as they succumbed to Vitality in a quick 2-0 defeat. And then we ended the day with Liquid persevering to beat Spirit in the back half of their series in 3 maps. There's a lot to get into, so let's not waste any more time before we get started. Make sure you leave a like, leave a comment down below, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It helps out immensely in the YouTube algorithm, so thank you for doing it. Also, while you're there, consider following me on twitch.tv/LionHeartZ2. I stream Sunday through Friday at 8:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I hope you'll come check me out. Without any further ado, let's get into our first series of the day, which unfortunately doesn't have much to get into. NAVI taking on the Falcons was unfortunately a one-sided affair from the very beginning. NAVI are cruising off the back of their recent ESO Pro League victory, and Falcons are a dead lineup walking and everybody knows it. The Falcons could not put up more than a paltry effort on either of these maps, with NAVI making short work of them on Anubis 13-5, and then things got a little bit more contested on Ancient, but NAVI still definitively looked like the better team, going 13-10 to close out the series. The reality is that while Sunpies and Magisk are definitely players who could be on a world-class team, the rest of this team just doesn't work. Dupree is inconsistent, Madden is an okay support player, and Snappy is definitely a good in-game leader, but with the threat looming of Nico coming in, it's clear that the cohesion just isn't working. And the biggest sign that the teamwork isn't following through is when you look at their T-side versus CT stats for the series. The Falcons were awful on their T-side effort for this series, only winning 3 total T rounds across both maps, and that pretty much means you are guaranteed to lose. For NAVI, this is the machine running as per usual with little issue. Bit, JL, Wonderful, Emma all had their moments of impact. Wonderful, JL, Bit specifically all tied for 37 kills across the series, which is insane. And while Emma had a very forgettable first map, he top fragged on Ancient to make up for it, further proving the fact that NAVI are so dangerous because any one of their 4 players can carry a game at any given time. That's why they have so much depth, that's why they're the best team in the world, and that's why they took care of the Falcons so easily. Let's move on to the next series, which would be G2 taking on the boys over at Faze Clan. And this was a weird one, another oddity in the G2 legacy as of late, where G2 were dominant in both of their victories on Dust 2 and Mirage, and then on Inferno they got blown out by Faze. There's no such thing as a close game with G2 lately, which is very weird. For whatever reason, win or loss, the average margin of victory is usually close to 6-7 rounds with G2 lately. Just a weird thing I've noticed with the stats. But I guess that's neither here nor there. On the first map, Dust 2, this was the m0NESY show. m0NESY was incredibly dominant, leading the way with 25 frags, 121 ADR, and a 1.93 rating, just doing great work both with the rifles and with the op up and down this game. What's interesting is that neither team seemed to be able to defend on the CT side whatsoever. Both halves ended up being very lopsided in favor of the Ts, with Faze on the first half winning 6 of the remaining 8 rounds after G2 jumped out to an early 4-0 lead with the pistol round, and on the second half, despite Faze taking the pistol round for themselves, G2 would win the second round for Spy, and then win out the rest of the game 6 straight to close it out. Despite the recent changes to the A bomb site with the inclusion of the self boost onto Cat, it just seems like still right now that teams are getting so refined with their utility that taking long A as the Ts is very good, and once that happens, being able to hold the A site becomes very, very difficult. If you get pushed back to site or back into CT, heaven forbid you get split through Cat, the A retake is next to impossible. So if teams can work long A control, work Cat control through mid, and then hit A late, Ts would go on to win the round the majority of the time, and that's what we saw play out here. And the end result in this case is a 13-7 victory for G2, with us heading to Inferno. And do you see what I'm saying? Like, G2 looked dominant on Dust 2, then we pull up to Inferno, and they get slapped around 13-6. Their T-side didn't look good at all, and their CT side could not handle the superior alpha strategy of the Chad Kerrigan versus the humble pleb Snacks. Jokes aside, it was a pretty close game on the first half, and G2 certainly had a lot of good looks on their T-side, like here on round 10, where despite pretty much everything going wrong, like losing on Banana early, then getting crushed by Brokey and Rain in mid, Hunter and Muzzy do a good job in this 2v4 of manufacturing control of the A site and putting us into an almost winnable position. Pretty much just a situation where if 1 or 2 gunfights go their way, they might end up winning this round. That was kind of the story of their first half. And despite winning the second half pistol and the conversion thereafter, once FaZe got their first buy round win on the T side, they won out the rest of the game without dropping a round. And that really sucks because there were definitely a couple key points where G2 could have broken momentum and made this game a lot closer. The round that's going to stand out the most is definitely round 16, where G2 pretty much do everything you would want in a standard Banana defensive round. They take the Banana control, deny that early map control to FaZe, Malbs manages to get a pick, elsewhere on A, Snacks gets a nice MP9 flank kill in Apartments, taking Rops off the board. And despite Rain getting the lurk kill towards Arch, at this point, it's a 3v4, you know the bomb is going B, this should be a round G2 are locking up every single time. But the combination of Frozen and Brokey worked their way into the B site perfectly, taking care of Malb's backside, getting the bomb down, and then moving into the post-plant situation. And to make a long story short, they would take care of Frozen, but Brokey would clutch things out to keep the round in favor of the Faze Clan. And that clutch definitely really hurt in G2, because they win this round, they most likely force a save or a bad force buy out of FaZe. If they win that round after, suddenly we're looking at an 8-9 scoreline instead of a 10-6 scoreline, but that's not the reality we live in. FaZe would hold on to this lead and win out the rest of the map like we already said, and we're moving on to a Mirage closer. And there's no real way of getting around this. Can anyone explain to me what the hell happened during this game? Like, I watched it, I'm assuming you guys watched it, but at the same time, I'm still very confused on what we saw play out. Just do me a favor, look at this scoreline. Does anything weird, out of character, unusual, odd, concerning stand out to you? No? All right, hold on. Let me magnify 2 things real quick for you. Meh and meh. Okay, so now do you guys see what's so weird? Yeah, Kerrigan and Snacks top fragged this game. In a server with all of Malbs, Nico, Munacy, Rops, Brokey, Frozen, it was Kerrigan and Snacks who were leading the team. Sure, they both had 2 less kills than Rops and Malbs, but I mean, they were on top of the scoreboard. They had the best rating. What the fuck? I guess we're just living in a bizarro world. We're living in the upside down land for this game. Not opposed, but it's definitely unusual. Now, other than that aberration of a scoreline, the rest of this game played out very similarly to Dust 2, where neither of these teams could defend to save their goddamn lives. G2 got 4 CT rounds, FaZe only got 1, but this was wholly a T-dominated affair, where FaZe led the way in the first half with 8 rounds of their own, and then G2 would pull off the reverse sweep, winning 9 of 10 rounds in the second half to close out the map. The thing that bothers me is that there's not a whole lot of nuance to really get into. There's not a whole lot for me to break down to you as a viewer, because at the end of the day, both of these teams play pretty much the same style. It's just a difference in magnitude of Kerrigan versus Snacks and their ability to mid-round. These are both teams that play very loose, star-focused Counter-Strike, where they might have a plan at the beginning of the round. They'll have like a default they want to work into, but they're going to play around the space that their best players can take. So rounds are won and lost pretty much entirely based on who takes contact with who and wins their gunfights. There aren't a whole lot of sophisticated things going on. It's simple strategy and who bangs each other's heads off, which admittedly makes for pretty entertaining Counter-Strike, but when it comes down to finding the more interesting stuff that stands out, it's tough for me, because all I can really do is do my best Wojak pointing at the screen impersonation as Nico, Munacy, and Malbs work through Connector and dismantle the FaZe defense. That's about all I can do. Anyway, G2, they persevere, they take the match, they move on to the upper bracket final. FaZe, they're still in this. They're still on this weird run of form where it's really hard to gauge what FaZe are gonna do lately, but hey, they kind of got a layup. They get to play the Falcons tomorrow, so I expect FaZe to still survive and make it through. Speaking of teams who are making it through, let's go ahead and talk about a team who's absolutely not, and that's Astralis. They had to play their opening series against Vitality, and if you follow this channel, yesterday I made a video talking about the controversy of Cadian being allowed to play at Blast Fall Finals, and hey, you should go watch that video if you haven't already. I thought it was pretty good, and not to ape my own bit here, TLDR, basically a lot of players protested Cadian being allowed to play because it looks like Astralis finagled the rules to make it happen. I said in that video that even though this is terrible and Astralis should be criticized, criticized for it, that listen, is it that big of a deal? They play Vitality in their first series. They're not going to win. And I even went so far as to say that Cadian would not get above a 0.6 rating as they got stomped out. And what do you know, not only did Astralis get destroyed 13-0 and 13-4 on both of these maps, but not only did Cadian not get above a 0.6 rating, nobody on Astralis got above a 0.6 rating. Shocker, this lineup is still trash. In the background, you're watching every single Cadian death, because I am that spiteful and that petty. Vitality got a layup, and instead of just putting the shot in the basket, they did a front flip off a trampoline and slam dunked the ball so hard that it blew up the basket. Moving on, our final series of the day was Team Liquid taking on Team Spirit. A really interesting matchup in all honesty, because Spirit are in a weird state. They're kind of in flux right now. They're struggling tournament to tournament. Meanwhile, Team Liquid, while they have their ups and downs, on the whole seem to be on the rise since their new roster formulated. But for whatever reason, these teams have yet to play each other since the new Liquid was formed. So we've yet to see Ultimate take on Shiro, Twist try to take care of Donk while IGLing, and all of those nuances in between. Now, we started off on Dust 2, and let's just go ahead and get this one out of the way. Spirit dominated Liquid 13-3, and if I had to summarize this game in one word, it would be Donk. Just Donk. Donk was doing, Donk was donking, Donk did what Donk does, Donk donked on Team Liquid. Donk. Donk. So Spirit quickly took the 1-0 series lead, and considering we were going to Nuke and Anubis afterwards, I was pretty concerned that Liquid were just going to get swiftly 2-0'd. However, Liquid surprised me and pretty much everybody by winning two back-to-back nail-biters 13-11 and 13-10 to reverse sweep Spirit and upset them in the series. Now, before I unleash my unbridled patriotism talking about NAVI dominating on Nuke, I want to focus on some of the issues facing Team Spirit right now, and that's the fact that their T-sides right now do not look great, and the person we have to look at as one of the chief reasons behind that is unfortunately Zontix. Zontix has been struggling lately, but especially on his T-sides. He played 28 T-side rounds in this series, and he only got 3 kills. Guys, he finished the series with 37 kills. He got 34 kills on just the CT sides of every game in this series, and only got 3 on the T side. This man needs some help. Somebody help this man. And the worst part is, you go back and watch the film on Nuke specifically, nothing stands out as like egregiously wrong in how he decides to play the game. On Nuke, he plays the lobby anchor. He's making sure people aren't pushing through Hut or pushing through Squeaky, and there are a handful of deaths where he just gets shot in the back, he couldn't really do anything. There are a handful of rounds where he takes the peak and lose, but generally speaking, he's not making any immediate errors, at least none that jump out to me. It just seems like he doesn't really have a place in the offense, which is a weird change from how Spirit used to play. When Spirit were on their rise in the first half of this year, a lot of the times Donk would go in first on T side, and then Zontix would be right behind him in Magix to play cleanup. But a lot of the time here on the T side, I noticed it was Donk and Magix taking space by themselves, while Zontix was left to hold the squeaky door or the lobby. He wasn't pushing with them a lot of the times, leaving him further in the pack with less to do. Whereas earlier in the year, it felt like he had this defined role as the third man in, the cleanup guy. He would be there to follow up after Donk and Magix created space, while Chopper and Shiro worked on the edges of the map. Right now, he does not have that kind of defined role in the offense. And it's not for a lack of ability. His CT side efficacy shows that he's still a quality anchor and very good at this game. But for whatever reason, he's either not being utilized correctly or not being given a chance to be utilized correctly in the current T-side setup from Spirit, and it's clearly hurting them because they're playing the majority of the rounds 4v5. Just so weird, so unexplainable from how Spirit used to play. I really don't know what's going on here. For Team Liquid, they got off to an 8-4 dominant lead on their CT side off the back of Spirit being so disjointed on their own T-side effort, and leading the helm was my guy, my king, my hero, NAVI. NAVI was incredible on this map. He tied ultimate for the most kills in the server, and dude, I just love Nav. I love seeing Nav succeed. One of the most underappreciated pros in Tier 1 for so many years. He's so good at doing what he does. In the past, I've made the comparison that he's the North American equivalent of Rain, and I stand by that. He puts up consistent good numbers, but he doesn't obfuscate the stars on this team, and him and Roland from Poland were just awesome. And to cap it off, on the final round of play, NAF navigated this sick 1v3 situation to clutch out the map victory for Liquid. If this went to overtime, who knows what happens, but it doesn't matter because we're flying high on the back of Nasty NAF, making these boys at Spirit look silly. And with that, we are heading to a decider on Anubis, where once again we start off with another anemic, disjointed T-sided effort from Spirit. They once again start this game off by going down 8-4 to Liquid. Their T-side is just not working right now. The rounds they are winning are just completely dependent on Donk or Shiro making a miracle happen. I mean, the fact they only won 4 T rounds, with Shiro having 18 kills, outpacing everybody on Liquid who, mind you, were winning these rounds. And even with that performance from Shiro, they still could not eke out more than 4 round wins. It's incredible. And listen, fair play, part of the reason they struggled to get those rounds over the line was because of, one, JKS, that smile, that goddamn smile, the sexiest man in Counter-Strike, who had a heater of a game, 15 kills on the first half, ended with 21 total, came out of nowhere to lead Liquid to victory, which you just do not expect out of JKS. That's not what his team asked from whatsoever. But his work anchoring the A side with ultimate behind him flexing between mid was inspired and necessary for Liquid to take that early lead that they held on to for the rest of the game. Yeah, my lasting impression coming out of this series was obviously how winnable this was for Spirit. I mean, literally a handful of rounds away from winning either Nuke or Anubis, obviously, but the bigger concern to me is that their T-sides just do not look sharp right now. And with Donk, they shouldn't be. Donk should be the difference between them having the best T-side in the world and having one of the worst. And considering that Donk is still playing good, they should be dominating teams on the T-side with his ability to break open sightlines with Shiro in the back with his competent omping. But for whatever reason, either the strats aren't working, the utilization of players aren't working, they need to do something to get Zontix in the mix, get him more involved, or else Spirit, they're going to continue to bleed these winnable series, which really sucks because Donk and Shiro are still playing at an elite level, and the rest of the team is just kind of slacking around them. Anyways, we'll see how this plays out over the next few days. Obviously, we'll be covering the action each day as it comes on by, which is why you should subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. This is the #1 place to get your same-day recaps of the biggest tournaments in Counter-Strike. Make sure you leave a like, leave a comment as well. These videos are powered by Advanced.gg. If you check the link in the description, browse any of their excellent products, and decide to make a purchase, you use my code LIONS10 for 10% off at checkout, and it lets them know I sent you their way. Thank you to Advanced.gg. I also work with Refrag, which is one of the best services in the industry to help you improve at your game when playing Counter-Strike. If you check out Refrag and want to get a subscription, you use my code LION15 for 50% off if you decide to do so. Thank you to Refrag as well. Shout out to my channel members, Justin, Jesse, Furley, Bubblesj, Dr. Cocktor, and Milan Berta. If you too want to help keep the lights on, you can check the link in the description. Lastly, follow me on Twitch as well. I'll be streaming tonight at 8:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Other than that, my name is LionHeartZ. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you soon with another video. Peace.